You know, you've taken the initiative as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, to grab the bull by the horns, right? And take your destiny into your own hands. And now what we're saying is, hey, grab the bull by the horns and take your money into your own hands. Don't let the Fed inflate it away. And, you know, I just think that's real important. Or I guess on this show, I should be saying that the hands around the hog.
Get your hands on that that hog's head.
By the way, did you guys see Josh's hat? We're selling merch now on our website. He's got a hat that says Hoggle.
Yeah,
Hoggle the Bitcoin.
It's a big hit at the firehouse so far.
This is the Blue Collar Bitcoin Podcast, a show where average Joe firefighters explore the most important monetary technology of the 21st century. We talk Bitcoin, we talk finance, and we talk shit. Thanks for taking the time to stop by the Blue Collar Bitcoin Podcast. Today, Josh and I are joined by two entrepreneurs, Ali from Tahinis Restaurants and Kevin from All Out Parking Lots, to discuss the power of Bitcoin in conjunction with small and medium-sized businesses. In this hour full of substance as well as giggles, we cover topics including proper Bitcoin etiquette, absolute scarcity versus scarcity, why Bitcoin is a clown sifter, how Costco bought all of the chicken, Bitcoin the network versus Bitcoin the asset, merchant and customer usage of the Lightning Network, Bitcoin custody for businesses, and the implications of the incredible Hulk on cocaine and biker crank. More about both our guests as well as their Twitter handles is down in the show notes. You can follow us on Twitter at blue_collar BTC. If you're picking up what we're putting down on this show and you want to help increase our reach, do us a favor and like, subscribe, or leave us a review. This show is brought to you by LEDN. LEDN is an extremely unique financial services company with a highly principled, Bitcoin-forward perspective. They are the first ever digital asset lending platform to undergo a formal proof of reserves attestation, where an independent public accountant regularly attests that the company is properly accounting for client assets. Simply put, this company mirrors and embraces the transparency, accountability, and auditability of the Bitcoin protocol and network itself. If you've listened to this show much at all, you certainly notice we advise our listeners to be careful, manage risk, and never get over-leveraged. And that does include ensuring that any borrowing and lending decisions make sound mathematical sense based on your lifestyle and specific situation. Where available in your jurisdiction, LEDN offers a menu of powerful financial services. Keep ownership of your Bitcoin and access dollar loans with LEDN Bitcoin-backed loans. Harness your Bitcoin holdings to buy a new property or finance the home you already own with the upcoming LEDN Bitcoin mortgage product. Save Bitcoin and the USDC to have access to LEDN dollar loans and their trading service where available. You can look into LEDN's well-architected menu of services at ledn.io. BCB Pod is also powered by COINKITE, makers of some of the most iconic Bitcoin products, such as the Open Dime, Cold Card, and Block Lock. Secure your Bitcoin and sleep like a freaking baby with the new Cold Card Mark IV. It's got an upgraded secure element, USB-C connector, new plastic, NFC, massive RAM for multi-sig, and much more. In addition to the Cold Card, if you've been around Bitcoin, you've seen the Block Lock. This marvelous display art piece adorns the background of any serious Bitcoiner with taste. Honestly, it's my favorite object in my house. COINKITE has also introduced some new products including the Sats card and the Tap Signer. This company is positioned to do it all in the custody realm. From giving your 87-year-old grandmother some Bitcoin who doesn't even know how to turn on a computer, to complex security schemes that make Fort Knox look like a kid's play toy. Access all COINKITE products at COINKITE.com and use promo code BCB for 5% off purchases of Cold Card. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I have one last favor to ask. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with Ali and Kevin.
All views and language expressed by the hosts and guests in this podcast are solely their personal opinions and do not reflect their employers or organizations they are associated with. Do not treat any of the content in this podcast as investment advice or as an inducement to follow a particular strategy. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only.
Howdy, folks. I am Dan alongside co-host Josh, and we are titillated today to be joined by Ali from Tahinis Restaurants in Canada and Kevin from All Out Parking Lots near Philadelphia. Two gentlemen that are harnessing the power of Bitcoin on their balance sheets within their businesses. Guys, thanks for giving us your time this morning.
Thanks for having us here.
Thank you for having us here, guys. We're big fans of the show, and we're looking forward to a fun conversation.
Hey, just before we got on, we had something important to discuss, people, and it's Bitcoin etiquette. And this is rule number 1 for anybody listening. This should go without saying. It's kind of like golf. You don't sneeze. You stay quiet when someone's taking a swing, but you never ask someone how much Bitcoin they have
Under any circumstance.
That is greatly offensive. So I just wanted to get that out of the way right off the top.
With that being said, how much Bitcoin do you two guys have?
I think the more important question is, how many US dollars do you have in your bank account, right?
In real terms or nominal? Because that number's changing.
Very little. Very little.
So you guys, we'd love to hear about your businesses. I think we're all familiar with Tahinis on Twitter. We see the glorious food that you guys are producing all the time. Tell us, Ali, about the Tahinis, how you guys started and what you guys do.
Yeah, so we are a restaurant franchise based out of London, Ontario. We came to Canada in 2011, right after the Arab Spring. We wanted to start careers here, so we started by buying this local restaurant in London, and we slowly grew that from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And we along the way we rebranded to the name Tahinis, and we ended up franchising it. And now, fast forward till today, we're at 11 stores all over Ontario, and by the end of the year, we're gonna be at around 25 stores.
Dang!
Wow!
Yeah.
When do you guys come to the U.S.?
So the U.S. is probably gonna be right after we hit that 30 mark. That's when we're gonna, start thinking about it.
Dan and I will prepare for that Sweetheart Deal franchise in the Chicago area. So you just let us know.
There is some redevelopment going on in the municipality we work in, some choice plots, and we'll put a good word in with the village manager because we're going to need one.
All right.
It's a great lunch option for a day at the firehouse, huh, Josh?
For sure.
Some shawarma. What's your favorite thing on the menu, Ali?
The chicken shawarma, hands down, is my favorite. But I don't eat it every day because, it's a lot of carbs. What I do eat on a regular basis is probably like the shawarma salad, where we it's like a Lebanese salad where we put chicken shawarma on top of it, and then we, put garlic sauce and hummus and all sorts of goodness on top of it. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Damn it, that sounds good. Josh and I are thinking about scheduling a Canada Bitcoin venture, hitting up some of our guests, the companies we've partnered with, and Tahinis is going to be on that list.
That's a great idea.
I would say every day. Lunch one day, dinner the next day. Just alternate lunch and dinner.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
Kevin, how about yourself? Tell us about your company.
Yeah, sure. So it was myself and my best friend Marco. When we were in college, we just started sealing driveways door to door. From there, we just kind of grew our business. We got into commercial work, and then we added on concrete and then paving and line striping. And so now we have 35 employees, and we do all commercial parking lot work.
That sounds really similar to how my partner and I started our business that we do on the side. It just, going door to door, getting rejected, doors slammed in our faces for the first couple months before we learned anything about advertising. Literally going from having no clue what we're doing to having, at this point, maybe like a bit of a clue, still figuring it all out. But yeah, it's cool to hear you did. That's how you kind of grassroots built it from nothing.
Yeah, that door to door life will build some thick skin. That's for sure.
It will. Even old ladies will throw you out on the curb and kick you in the head. They don't care.
Definitely.
Where does the entrepreneurial spirit come for both of you? You have parents, family members that kind of brought you up this way. Where does the drive come from?
Good question. Just the drive to make it. in a country where you're kind of alone is a pretty big driver for us coming here to Canada. We had some of our family were here and they were already established and everything, and we came in. We didn't have like any professional degrees, so we weren't like doctors or dentists or lawyers or something like that. So we had to figure it out, and we went into the restaurant business having zero restaurant experience, and
Awesome.
That was daunting at first. But yeah, we ended up making it work. We learned everything from scratch, and you grind it out. You work 7 days a week until you make it.
Kevin, how about you? How'd you decide I want to make my own ends meet?
Yeah, for me, just started young, right? My cousin was in a band, and I used to sell his demo CDs in the lunchroom at school. Marco and I always either shoveled snow in the winter or, did landscaping in the summer, tried to sell T-shirts, whatever we could do to make a buck. So I really didn't, look for a job or anything like that. My whole goal in college was to figure out what business that I was going to start, and we just stumbled upon driveway seal coating, and same deal. Didn't know anything, but learned the hard way, and just kind of made our way from there.
So, Ali, you guys are focused on building restaurants. You're at this point working on in your teens. Kevin, you guys are building a 35 employee asphalt, concrete business. And what is it that suddenly turned you guys onto Bitcoin? It seems like, when you're focused as an entrepreneur on your business, you're not really paying attention to the money necessarily. You're just focused on making this business as big and as bad as possible and, pleasing all your customers. So what is it that struck you guys in the last 3 or 4 years that turned you to be interested in Bitcoin specifically?
Yeah, so for me, it was started like personally with my personal portfolio. I was like an equity investor the whole time I was here for the past decade, and it never, I came across Bitcoin I think in 2017, but I dismissed it immediately as a Ponzi rat poison because I was a big Warren Buffett fan. Still am, by the way, but I just completely disagree with him on Bitcoin now. But when 2020 hit, at that month of March, the whole economy came to a halt and everything locked down, and we watched our sales drop 70 or 80% in a week.
Damn.
And
that'll make you pucker.
Yeah. And then the thing that really made us go crazy is that while everything was shut down, there was more money flowing around within our community. People had more money because of all the subsidies and all the free money that was being printed out of thin air. And then on top of that, we were watching the billions and trillions of dollars that are being printed by the central banks. And I was like, holy shit, this is going to end really badly. Money is going to become worthless. This is a really big problem. So I have to find a way to protect my personal wealth.
Yeah, and not just end badly for the system, but for you personally with your business, right? You're doing some quick napkin math going, how long can this be sustained without some kind of alternative solution?
Exactly. So I was kind of in panic mode trying to find a solution. And that's when I came across Bitcoin again. And I bought a little as just, a fun investment. But then I came across the article by Robert Breedlove, The Number Zero in Bitcoin.
Great article.
Read that, clicked for me that this is like a once in a lifetime invention. And the idea of absolute scarcity versus scarcity is a huge difference and something that I shouldn't ignore. So ended up buying more and then went down the rabbit hole hard since then. Bought the Bitcoin standard, devoured it in 3 days, bought more Bitcoin, bought the price of tomorrow, fell down the rabbit hole hard, kept listening to endless podcasts and reading books and buying as much as I can along the way until I was like at 100% of my personal portfolio, because I started selling all my stocks and equity and just buying more Bitcoin with it. Yeah, it was a crazy obsessive phase. I was doing this during our restaurants were struggling, and I was at the restaurants trying to keep them afloat because all of our employees left. So while I was doing like all the dishes and cleaning up at night, I was like, I had my AirPods on. I was listening to podcasts and books along the way. And then, so yeah, it grew from there to a way of life where I wanted to incorporate it into my business. And I was I had a conversation with my partners about it, but we were kind of on the fence. And when I saw Michael Saylor do that first initial buy with MicroStrategy, that's what kind of pushed us over the edge. And we were like, okay, game on. This is a race of accumulation now, and we want to be there before the rest of the S&P 500 figures this out. And so we jumped all in and we tweeted about it, and we've been promoting Bitcoin ever since.
It is so fun hearing these rabbit hole stories one after another, because we've all shared the same experience of, it's kind of like dating, the difference between finding the one and just another great girlfriend. Like when you're really close with a buddy, you can tell this is just another girlfriend. And then every once in a while they come back, and the look on their face, the degree to which they're smitten, the level of infatuation, you're like, this might be different. And when you actually study, we're not talking about speculative mania. We're talking about you study, you go manic with the education phase. And then it's just this cascade of like, all right, I need more Bitcoin. I think I'm good here. We're going to stop here, honey. At least in my household. And then it's like, you learn more. It's like, no, we're going to have to keep going and going and going. And it really is this never ending vortex that keeps sucking you in. And it's no surprise that it goes from small personal position to large personal position to company balance sheet position. It's just the flow of things. The other comment I was going to say, to hear a business owner like yourself talk about revenues dropping off a cliff 70 or 80% in a span of a couple months is mind-blowing. As Greg Foss would say, you could pick up a grape with your arsehole with that kind of cutoff. That is seriously though wild to hear.
Yeah,
you go through that sort of situation.
Yeah, it was a wild time. It wasn't fun for everyone. It wasn't fun for us. But in you always try to look at the good side, and you always try to find the opportunities. With us, the biggest opportunity was Bitcoin, and we're glad we found it. And if we didn't go through that, we wouldn't be where we are today. So I'm grateful.
Yeah, Kevin, I was listening to you talk with Clay on his podcast, Millennial Investor. And you said that, 2020 greatly affected your outlook on the economy, which I think, everybody was on board with that. But the thing I wanted to ask you about, and Ali, you might have heard of this, but I don't think that you guys had the same exact experience in Canada, because we had these PPP loans for businesses here in the US, which was basically a loan to make up for the income you would have had, that 70% deficit that you guys experienced. You could put that on paper, you give it to the a bank that's going to give you this loan, you get the loan, and then as long as you can prove that you paid employees with it, it gets forgiven. So tons and tons of businesses in the US, everybody that could do it did it. I want to hear Kevin's thoughts on this process, how it worked, and maybe the incentives, the way the incentive structure is built when you have a product like this. What are your thoughts on that, how that all worked here?
Yeah, sure. So, my experience was journey into Bitcoin was similar to Ali's. Same deal. March 2020 hits, and funny enough, we were actually coming back from the Restaurant Facilities Manager Association. So we were soliciting to restaurants. We had a booth set up, and we got back the next day. The NBA shut down. Everything shut down. We had a ton of contracts that were pulled, and we were trying to figure out how to navigate this. the CARES Act came out. Part of that was the PPP program, the payroll protection program. And so yeah, you calculated up the payroll that you had the previous year. You send in all of your documents, right? You got a certain amount of money, and as long as you use that for payroll and a few other expenses, then it was just forgiven. So it's free money. So we got that the first go around. The second go around in January of 2021. We got it again. And, I'm no genius economist, but I knew there was going to be some side effects from them just printing trillions of dollars and just giving it away.
There was so much fraud that went on during that. I don't know if you guys heard about there was an entrepreneur, quote unquote entrepreneur in Florida who was driving around like a couple of brand new Lamborghinis because he just made up or he dug out some company's names and he submitted the application and they sent him over $1 million. There was the whole thing was just rife with scumbags like using the system.
There was a lot of slop in the hog pen.
It's the old Charlie Munger thing, you show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. Well, that's exactly what happened with this PPP loan. It gave a bunch of incentives to people who obviously didn't have any kind of moral compass, and they used it exactly the way that you'd expect them to use it. They made their life better, probably didn't even pay these employees half the time. Like there's all kinds of different ways that you could maneuver to make it look like you paid employees and just pay yourself. You could even make deals with employees to pay them and then they give you 50% back or something. There's just a mound of ways that this produces very, very bad incentive structure.
The other thing I was going to say, and then this will be a question for both of you. I think it was Ali. I heard you saying this. I forget on which podcast, but the issue with all this, as I said before, all this slop being thrown in the hog pen, which is great. You got to soak it. When the slop's there, you got to eat. You know what I mean? We would do the same thing. But the problem is you create this zombie dynamic where companies, obviously the COVID lockdowns were unjust and unfair from a business perspective. We're not talking like moral health thing. We're just saying all of a sudden there's this artificial cutoff in demand that just happens instantaneously and businesses are expected to survive. So I understood the impetus for introducing this liquidity and available money. But now you have this dynamic, and Ali, I think it was you saying this, of these restaurants that have basically been shut down for extended periods of time that are still afloat, trying to re-engineer what they had before or maybe what they didn't have before. I'm guessing the same thing is true in your area, Kevin, of companies similar to yours or different that are just been limped along. And now as those crutches get pulled, we get to find out who actually walks again. Is this a dynamic you're both seeing in your areas with companies that were sort of limped along by these relief programs?
Absolutely. We have like some even neighboring restaurants that are right next to us in some of the locations where they literally shut down for almost the entire time for 2 years, and they were able to stay afloat. And it was driving us crazy because why? Right? Like we're out here busting our asses, coming to work every day. Like during the lockdowns, we were at the restaurants day and night trying to keep the businesses cash flow positive. And the incentive structure was built in a way where you could sit back, relax, and take out a bunch of debt that gets forgiven. It wasn't fair. It's not fair. It's not a free market anymore when you do that. And
Absolutely.
It's not fair to the companies that show up to work and provide value and deserve to be rewarded. Like the amount of, for example, like the amount of prime locations that we could have taken because some restaurants decided not to go to work and they went out of business.
Good point.
They're not there anymore. So that opportunity for us is gone. They're just zombie companies, like you say. That's literally the definition of zombie companies. They're just held up by some fake money without actually providing any value to society. So we're pretty heavily against that. We think it's a manipulation of capitalism, and it's just wrong for young up and coming entrepreneurs that want to make a name for themselves?
I couldn't agree more. They were calling it socialism for businesses at that time because, hey, as a business, you need to be, financially responsible, right? Like if something happens, whether it's a recession hits or you lose a key employee or a key customer, like, you've got to figure it out, right? Or you've got to have money in reserves. If a kid growing up just goes ahead and he blows his money and then his dad bails him out or something, right? And just gives him more money, that kid's not going to learn that lesson, right? So, it's not free market. And, like you were saying, I understand kind of why, but I wasn't a fan of it. We took it because everybody else was. Our competitors were going to.
Right? Yeah. We took it too. You're at a disadvantage if you don't take full advantage of every, advantage. It's about, this perverse incentive structure that it was everything from employees not wanting to come back to work because they can sit at home and do nothing versus going, and laying asphalt or putting together smormas. Like, I want to sit at home and do nothing. Like, I'm a lazy piece of shit person just like everybody else. Like, I'm going to do as little as possible.
You can just do that at the firehouse instead, though.
That's why we do this. That's why Dan and I sit in here. We find some people to talk to, and we sit at our desks in our basements and act like we know what we're talking about and talk about Bitcoin for an hour. It's awesome. And I do very little. It's great.
The firehouse is a fickle place, gentlemen. Like I was saying before we came on, so we're at a pretty busy agency. I won't go into specific numbers to docs where we're at, but relatively speaking, we're busy. But you do occasionally get the day where you feel just like an absolute piece of shit, but it's gorgeous. And yesterday was one of those days, 24-hour shift, 2 amazing meals, 3 calls, slept through the night like a freaking baby. But it's a thing of beauty. Totally agree with what you said, though, Josh. I want to get into exactly what purpose Bitcoin serves in both of your companies. Kevin, why don't we start with you? How are you harnessing Bitcoin for all-out parking lots?
Sure. So for us, it's a savings technology, right? So we have, we have options in our business as to where we want to allocate money, right? So we're going ahead. We have our strategy, which is our P&L strategy, where we're paving parking lots, we're pouring concrete, right? And then we have our balance sheet strategy, where we're taking those cash flows and plugging that into Bitcoin. So for us, like if we wanted to, we could think about maybe opening another shop, maybe down in Virginia or something, right? Like out of our territory, and trying to start another branch down there, right? But we would take on a massive amount of risk, trying to market down there, hire, be able to source the equipment for all of that, right? So for us, we use it as a strategy to go ahead and just purchase Bitcoin, put it on the balance sheet, and let that continue to grow. So we're not just chasing dollars, right? We're putting our money into an asset that is appreciating faster than the rate of inflation historically. And we also use it for recruiting as well. That's another tool. So when we were hiring for an inside operations coordinator this winter, right, we put up there, hey, Bitcoin bonus. And so the woman who had applied for this job, she actually she saw it on Indeed. She went ahead and reached out to me personally on LinkedIn and said, hey, I looked at 30 jobs. Yours appeals to me the most. Can I have an interview with you? And I said, absolutely. She took the initiative. She came in and she said, hey, listen, I saw that Bitcoin bonus on the job ad there. And, it shows to me that you guys are a forward thinking company, and I want to be a part of a company like that. And, and then for us, hey, who doesn't want to work with Bitcoiners, right? So they view the world a certain way, and we appreciate that. So we ended up hiring her. So it worked out for recruiting purposes, and then retention. So we use it. We wanted to orange pill the entire company. And when Strike came out with the pay me in Bitcoin feature, we were able to do that. So it's nothing crazy, right? We give $5 a week that we pay everybody in the company. They wake up Friday morning, they get a notification from their Strike app that they got $5 in Bitcoin. And it's extremely easy to set up. Strike gives you a account number, a routing number. And, for us, we use ADP for our payroll system. You just plug in that they're going to get $5 that's going into this account. And it goes through our account to ADP. Then it goes through as US dollars and then is converted into Bitcoin into their Strike app. So those are the few of the ways that we're utilizing Bitcoin.
That's so badass.
I love the way that you've thought that through, everywhere from retaining employees to capturing new ones. And then, obviously Bitcoiners, like you said, are people you want to work with, because I think we could agree that they're generally people that are capitalists in general, understand why you're running a business. They don't expect you to give them shit for nothing. And just basically aligned with your thought process, which is exactly what you want in an employee.
Bitcoin is a bit of a clown filter.
Yes, it is.
As I'm sure you both know, hiring a lot of people and managing a lot of people, the goal is to avoid clowns. So why not get one of the best clown sifters available, that being Bitcoin?
When just a quick question for how you operate this, I'm curious. You said you have the P&L and you have the basically the savings investing Bitcoin side. So the P&L, you basically are retaining enough cash there to run everything completely, right? You're not dipping back into Bitcoin here and there. Because, I'm just thinking, and that would be an absolute accounting nightmare to go back and forth there, at least the way my business works. Could you just explain a bit about how that works for you?
Yeah, sure. So we're really just DCA. So we make sure we have enough to for a few months to be able to operate the company, right? And then we put a certain amount in per week. We use a Bitcoin only exchange. Yeah. And we just, we set that amount that we're putting in, and every week it goes in. But, we have a whole cash flow forecast to make sure we have obviously enough cash to run the business. And we have a very, conservative amount that we have in there. So we're not taking any big risk.
And that's key, by the way, to you want to structure your Bitcoin strategy in a way where you never have to sell your Bitcoin, no matter what.
Yes.
So we do pretty much the same thing. We have what we call a working capital, and we try to calculate that number. What number do we need to have for a period of 6 months that will cover anything from emergencies to business operations to expenses, et cetera, and anything beyond that number, we take that, we sweep it into Bitcoin. But I also want to add something is that, not every business is going to have that opportunity to do that, because not every business is going to be making excess cash that you don't withdraw as the business owner.
Right.
So especially small businesses, ton of small businesses out there that are just, the owners are the company treasury, basically.
Right.
So what I want to say is, like, even if you are at that point, like even sweeping, like taking the money out of the corporation personally, and then sweeping it into Bitcoin, you're still on a Bitcoin standard because you are the company. And then eventually, as your company grows, you will reach a point where, it's not accounting wise and tax wise, it's not smart to take out all the money out of the company because of just tax purposes. So you leave it in the corporation, and that's what that's when you use it to either, leave it there or buy Bitcoin with it or do other stuff with it.
I want to say one more way, I guess, how we're using Bitcoin, right? We actually brought in a certified financial planner who may or may not have been on your podcast. I don't want to say
Kreider.
I don't want to say his or her name because
that's true.
But, it rhymes with Fim Fighter.
Yes.
I bet I know who he is.
So we had him come in and listen. We're not his typical customer, right? But I heard him on your podcast. I reached out to him and said, "Hey, listen, I just concerned about my team members, right? Concerned about my employees. We're going through a crazy amount of inflation, and I can't afford to, give them 20, 30% raises year over year. We'll go out of business. So I'd like to, educate them, right? And I'd like to have a pro Bitcoin financial planner to be able to do so. So what we did was we're subsidizing the majority of what it's costing for Jim to give his services, and then the employees paying a little bit to be able to go ahead, put together a plan, a budget, and for Jim to go ahead and point them in the right direction. And so
that is really
that is incredible. Seriously, yeah. I mean, so to our agency specifically, and I'm not looking to shit on anybody because everyone's well-intentioned, but like we have access to financial professionals, right? And these people are well-intentioned and they've served people great in a lot of respects, but they are as TradFi as it gets. I mean, you mentioned Bitcoin. It's still, I think, currently at the stage of anathema, and they're touting your typical risk parity, de-escalating risk into fixed income long-term. What an amazing opportunity that would be, even at our agency, to have access to somebody with financial expertise that certainly understands traditional markets, but also gets the implications of Bitcoin. An invaluable resource for your employees and just for your company as a whole to have that kind of person to tap.
Yeah, you're doing them a great service. I mean, that is a really, really cool thinking outside the box thing that you did there. I love it.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm hoping everyone takes advantage. She actually just came in on Tuesday, so I don't have the numbers yet as to who all has signed up, but yeah, that's my hope for everybody.
Ali, you guys have plopped some Bitcoin ATMs at the establishments. Am I correct?
That is correct, my friend. We that's one way we integrate Bitcoin into our business. Because after putting on the balance sheet, there's you start looking for other ways to integrate Bitcoin into your business. So it depends. Kevin has his way, which is brilliant with the employees. We partnered up with a Bitcoin ATM company in Canada to put Bitcoin ATMs in all of our locations, and then we also were able to be good friends with a company here called ShakePay, where it's kind of like Cash App in the US. And they have a ShakePay card. That's like a credit card. And we're partnering up with them to be part of their, it's called a partner program, where when a customer comes in, buys a shawarma with the ShakePay card, instead of getting 1 or 2% back in Bitcoin, they would get 6 or 7% back in Bitcoin. So we want to reward our customers with Bitcoin for, because they bought a shawarma, right? So there's so many cool integrations, and that's like, one of the unintended consequences that came out as a result of us, coming out in public and talking about it, announcing it is you end up forming this great relationships with the Bitcoin community, which are fucking awesome, by the way. These
you guys specifically are getting all this free advertising with people buying your shirts. I can't tell you how many, I'm pretty sure I saw Pish wearing your shirt at Bitcoin 2022, and I saw at least 20, 30 of them.
Wow, really? That many? Shirt. That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
So I mean, just that simple, like, hey, people want Tahinis shirts because they know what you guys are up to.
Yeah, I mean, like, the Bitcoin community is probably the best community I've ever met in my life. They are global but borderless. They are
psychopaths.
Yeah, psychopaths. They all have one mission in mind. We all have Bitcoin in common, and we all want to bring freedom money to every corner of the earth, right?
Absolutely.
And that mission just binds us and connects us in a way where, like, as soon as I see a Bitcoiner, instant connection. I know that I align with them on so many levels, and it doesn't matter, what what country you're from, what language you speak, what color your skin is. All that shit is, non-existent in the Bitcoin community. And they stick together like glue and like cyber hornets, right? Like the great sailor quote.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to watch that much support coming to us of just a random shawarma business in London, Ontario. We're getting like people that have never even tried our food that are like supporting us and throwing love our way. And it's something that is just amazing to be part of. And I'm honored, and fucking excited to be part of this community.
Didn't Sailor have a Tahinis hat on his logo on Twitter there? That's legendary. That's legendary.
Yep. Pish had a Tahinis shirt on. I would venture to say, gentlemen, that your two companies should enter the rotation of like Bitcoin pilgrimage. You need to visit El Salvador. You need to buy a shawarma at Tahinis, and you need to get your driveway seal coated by All Out Parking Lots. Like, these are three things you have to have done if you're a legit Bitcoiner.
Yeah. No, it is amazing. And, you know what though? Like, Dan, it's like, what better mission or what more noble mission can you be a part of than trying to bring economic empowerment to people all over the world? Like, name me one other tool that can do that. Nothing.
Definitely not Klaus at the World Economic Forum. He's the only tool I can think of that is certainly not doing that. Did you guys see the huge hit piece they just put on Bitcoin proof of work mining?
That was amazing. That was
absolutely insane. Like, just rife with bullshit and stupidity.
Yeah.
What's the dude's name from Ripple? Chris Larson.
Yeah.
Like that clown it was Ripple. What was it? Ripple, Pfizer, and a couple other companies that are representative of the WEF.
Yeah.
Like, those companies can all go fuck themselves as far as I'm concerned.
The best thing about that video is that, one, they showed their hand that they're scared. They're terrified of this.
Exactly.
Two, they mentioned Ethereum company is moving to a proof of stake.
Ethereum company, exactly.
Freudian slip.
Loved it.
Yeah. And that basically just proved the point.
It did.
Yeah.
Well said. That's a great point. I loved Pish's response on Twitter. I retweeted. He said, "We aren't selling. We aren't changing the code. Real money equals energy. Enjoy your sea of broken paper promises and cry harder." Preston Pish. Guy's coming out of the woodwork these days. Mr. Polite is getting a little edgy.
Fork the code, Mr. Chris Larson. See what happens.
Yeah.
Fork the code.
Fork the code. You guys get any pushback from business owners in your, similar businesses as you guys? I don't know if you probably hang out in some associations of other businesses similar. You guys get a lot of pushback on this? Do people know about it that are outside of the Bitcoin space?
Yes, I do. I'm in a couple different mastermind groups or CEO groups, right? And I try to bring it up. I've given presentations on it, and I don't know if it's the age difference and just like frame of reference, but yeah, I've tried and I've gotten pushback from it. I guess because I'm one of the younger ones. I'm 33, and so that's been a challenge. And yeah, frame of reference is always a challenge. I guess, like, for me, the pandemic was the first real concern, right? Versus the other guys have been through. Whether it was 9/11 or the dot-com bubble, or whether it was 2008, right, the housing market crash and everything, and so they kind of say, hey, yeah, we've been through this before, and but we'll keep moving forward, and I'm trying to explain that, hey, this time's different, right? I mean, look at what's going on and all the money printing that's taking place. But for some reason, it doesn't add up. I guess I presented about 6 months ago. I'm just starting to get guys asking more questions. So I'm thinking I'm seeing the tide turn, but it's tougher than I thought.
At the end of the day, Kevin, price is the great teacher. Like, we've only been in this since 2017, but having been through a couple cycles, we've seen it. you cast the nets at times like these, and then when price goes 2, 3, 4x, that's when all the fish pile in. And that really is okay. Like in some sense, when you're developing all this sound conviction and you're spending hundreds or thousands of hours researching, you can be banging your head going, why don't they get this? But they will. The curiosity will come. And when they bounce back, I'm sure the four of us agree we're here with open arms. You know what I mean? There should not be this I told you so impetus, because we were all there. Price was the great teacher for me. It was the great teacher for Josh. And
absolutely,
we're laying the groundwork to build the foundation for a lot of people once it clicks. And when Bitcoin's at $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, a lot of people are going to start doing some napkin math on what the decision you guys made, what kind of effect that's happening on your company, and then people will follow suit. But in the meantime, when we're kind of waiting it out and waiting for the rest of the world to catch up to the implications of this paradigm shifting protocol, it does require some patience, and occasionally it incites some frustration.
When they do that napkin math, they're going to have some horrible etiquette, and they're going to come to you and ask you how much Bitcoin you have. You're going to tell them to fuck off and get on a Bitcoin standard. So speaking of that, so are either of you guys taking Bitcoin as payment for your businesses? I'm assuming if somebody was like, hey, I'd like to pay you in Bitcoin, especially for something like a driveway, if you were going to, do a concrete driveway, you'd do it probably. But on a normal recirculating period of time, do you guys get paid in Bitcoin at all?
So we currently don't accept Bitcoin payments because we just want to keep the accounting. Like when it started off, we wanted to keep the accounting clean.
Understandable.
And operate in dollars and using profits to buy Bitcoin. If we brought Bitcoin payments into this, that means we would have to sell some Bitcoin to pay some of our expenses, which goes kind of against our whole message that we're trying to push anyways. But recently we have, been thinking about, okay, even if we do take Bitcoin, it's probably going to be a minimal amount, and we can just sweep that straight into our treasury and never have to sell it. So that's kind of a strategy we're still exploring. But if you're gonna sell Bitcoin to take Bitcoin payments, sell it to pay expenses, it becomes an accounting nightmare because you have to record when you received it,
especially for the small payments you guys are getting for food. Like tens of thousands of them a day.
It doesn't make any sense to take Bitcoin payments, right? So yeah, just keep it simple, stupid. Operate in dollars. Even if you're gonna, accept Bitcoin payments, you're not gonna get a lot of Bitcoin payments because even Bitcoiners don't want to spend their Bitcoin, right? They actually want to spend their dollars. And besides that, there's like maybe 20 Bitcoiners in our city, so it's not, you're not gonna get the biggest, income advantage or out of it. But it's best to just keep sweeping it, operate in dollars, keep it clean, keep the accounting clean, and sweep the profits into Bitcoin.
The comment I wanted to make with that, this is going to be one of those conversations that if you listen 10 years from now is going to sound insanely dated, because I'm sure, as we all agree right now, let's just, for simplicity's sake, let's call Bitcoin a store of value, decentralized, censorship resistant monetary opportunity. Eventually it's going to do it all. And that's going to include medium of exchange, and everything's going to catch up, much like the internet did, single use case in the beginning, and then it ate everything in terms of information. The same will happen with Bitcoin, and it will sound dumb in 15 years to say, oh, it's hard to take Satoshis, but it is right now. Things haven't caught up, and I totally understand where you're coming from. There is this guy on Twitter, goes by the name of Fim Fighter. He's a financial planner guy. He asked, his question for us today was, when will they make the switch from pricing in fiat and then converting to Bitcoin to pricing in sats? I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, but the answer to the question is when friction's reduced and that becomes easier and network effects grow and consumers demand that, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I thought about it too, because you could do that same thing I was talking about with Strike. Like we have certain companies that pay us through ACH. And so I could give them that routing number and account number to go ahead and do that. But, I decided against it. Yeah, we just take the money in US dollars and then convert it into Bitcoin from there.
We sent out an email to a bunch of customers, the small business that I run, and I offered I don't remember if it was a 10 or 15% discount last spring for the service we offer, and complete crickets.
If they paid
not
in Bitcoin,
a single
right?
response.
Yeah,
exactly. If they paid in Bitcoin, and didn't get a single response at all. So I was like, all right, well, it was a good effort. I took a swing at it.
And if they do pay you, Josh sends an automated response back that says you just made a mistake. You shouldn't part with your Bitcoin. Go listen to the Blue Collar Bitcoin podcast.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And Josh would definitely have reported that on the company's income stream.
Obviously.
Obviously.
I want to talk about inflation. There's a quote, Ali, I ran across of yours that says, nobody needs this more than small or medium-sized businesses. They are screwed. In reference to Bitcoin.
Yes.
What has this looked like from just the expense of running your companies the last few years with inflation, supply chain issues? Obviously, I'm sure wages are pushing up. Walk us through that quote, Ali, and then for both of you, what this inflationary landscape has looked like.
Yeah, it has been awful for small and medium-sized businesses because inflation literally touches every aspect of your business and then ends up diluting your market share to your bigger competitors just as a way of design. So I'll give you an example of that. For us, we have actually another business. It's like a food distribution company, which makes orders food in bulk and sends it out to all of our locations, but also sends it to other restaurants as well. So it's a big business. It's like sends food to over 70 restaurants. So we have kind of good purchasing power and pricing power because of the amount of food that we buy. Yet, Costco can come in and buy all the chicken in the market. And I mean all of it. And the market is just all of a sudden out of chicken. And the next time there's chicken availability, the prices go up. And then we now have to compete with Costco and McDonald's and all the big, mammoth corporations that have 1,000x more buying power than us, right? And we simply can't compete with that, right? Like McDonald's will raise their prices 5%. We as a smaller company, if we actually want to keep up, we have to raise more than that, but we can't raise 20%, you know? Even though that's the inflation rate on all of our products. Some of them even more than 20%, right? So that becomes a grueling race to ruin for small, medium-sized companies. And without, if you just focus on that, it becomes quite depressing. So thinking outside the box and thinking about a balance sheet strategy that goes along with your, income strategy becomes essential, because you really are in a race to lower profits and lower margins by design. So you have to find something that beats that counters that.
There's this is a thought that just occurred to me. So you guys are all familiar with the Cantillon effect.
Yes.
The person at the trough for the money printing first generally receives the money without the inflation, and then on down the bottom of the trough, we get the worst. What you're describing is almost the reverse of that. So not only is McDonald's in a position where they're going to be able to get those cheap loans because of their position, they're also able to avoid on the bottom of the trough when the inflation starts to really peak. They've not only gotten the money cheap, but now they're getting the goods cheaper than you. So they're making a double play to not only get the money first, but also receive the least inflation.
Yeah.
On both ends of that transaction. That is something I hadn't realized or thought of before.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the same for you, Kevin. Those bigger asphalt paving companies are probably doing the same thing to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the inflation. I mean, I went to order a skid steer, which is a common piece of equipment in our industry, right? And if I wanted to get it, I asked for a quote, and they said they wouldn't be able to deliver it until December. And so from the time I asked for it for a quote, and then we decided to say, hey, we can't find anyone anywhere else. So we're just going to have to go with this and wait till December. The price went up 10%, and it's not a
Wow.
cheap piece of machinery. It's expensive. And then they said that we can't guarantee you your financing rate. So whatever it is at that time, is what you're going to get. I can't tell you. If we want a triaxle, which is a Mack dump truck that hauls asphalt, we're a year and change away from being able to get one. And even the used market is pretty dried up at this point too. So I mean, the prices are going up on everything because there's a shortage of everything, and so inflation is really killing us there for sure. So it's
and it's like it or leave it.
Everything. Yeah, exactly. They say, listen, you don't even have to put any money down, because if you decide in December that you don't want this, there's 100 people waiting right behind you. So we'll just give it to them. Like it or leave it. You got to take it. So
the prices of some of these pieces of equipment is crazy how much it's changed. I mean, so at our department, there's 6 fire vehicles, so 6 trucks or engines and 4 ambulances and then some other vehicles. Even since I've gotten on 5 years ago, like the price of a fire engine or a tower ladder or all these pieces of equipment has gone
Almost doubled.
It's crazy how much they've changed.
It's actually funny. The engine that we bought in 2016, I asked the chief about this the other day because I was curious. It was $650,000 or so. The one we just ordered, which will be delivered in, June or July or something, Dan? It's over 900. So it's like 950 or so. And no material changes in this thing. It's not like we ordered something special or bespoke or totally different than the original or the one from 4 or 5 years ago. It is just purely $350,000 roughly.
It's more wild.
Massive increase.
What I think hearing about your situations, gentlemen, is just inflation is a new stressor that you have to adapt to. And it forces business owners to get A, more creative with their operations, but B, more creative, ingenuitive, and thoughtful with their balance sheets, which is what you two are doing. And that's why I love the distinction you've both drawn. Ali, I've heard you talk about this. Just you've got your business strategy, you've got your balance sheet strategy. And I think it's very helpful to distill some of these themes down to the individual. And you need both. Like without one, you can't have the other, right? So let's think about the individual. You need a steady stream of income and earning capacity, a good vocation, and then you need a sound investment saving strategy. So for example, if you're a 28-year-old living in your childhood bedroom with no career trajectory or work ethic, you're missing one side of the equation. Even if you're super into Bitcoin, that's not going to be enough. Get off your ass and go do something. On the other side, if you're a plastic surgeon making $700,000 a year, levering up to your eyeballs and luxuries, and your investment strategy is a total bond market index, you're fucked too. Like you're missing one side of the equation. So you need both, but in this climate, it's more important to have that balance sheet strategy than ever before to stay afloat, especially if you're a medium, small size business. I'm sure you both agree. Are you seeing more people wake up to the precarious reality that exists today in your landscapes?
I like to give the example of, okay, let's say you're a florist, right? And, you've built up a great reputation in town. Everybody goes to you for the prom or Valentine's Day, or, if your wife's upset, you got to go get her flowers, right? But you can't compete on a marketing level with the 1-800-Flowers, right? They have a ton more dollars. And so, what's your other option to continue to try and grow your business is maybe you go the next county over, right? And you try to set up a new shop, and you got to put a ton of marketing dollars into that, train people on, what exactly they're doing, all of those things. Like when in reality, if that business is making, let's say a few $100,000 a year, right, in profits, they should be able to just keep doing what they're doing, But because of inflation, their business is getting devalued, by the day as this money printer keeps going. And so what's the solution, right? And that's where Bitcoin comes into play, right? We have that solution, and that's what we're trying to get that, out to everybody, and hopefully they understand.
Yeah, and I think the other thought I've had to bring up in this discussion is just to bring it back to the individual once more. We talk about taking a hedge position in your portfolio. If you're a business owner who's unsure about this, you're just in the beginning journey, there's other factors on your board or your co-founder or whatever, they're not cool going, heavily in. It's still worth taking a hedge position in your company. Like, it's not like your balance sheet has to be 100% Bitcoin. You could start at 1%, 2%, 5%, just like we talk about in individual portfolios, to at least hedge the onslaught of the dynamic you two have just explained.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, 1% is still better than zero. And you guys had Preston Pish. I love hearing him forecast, the future price of Bitcoin. He's saying, like, you don't need much really to come out of this decade on a good standing. But you just need to be patient. You need to have the conviction to hold on and not sell throughout this period. And so yeah, like, I encourage, everyone here calls me the crazy Bitcoin guy in all my friends groups and my family groups and everywhere I go. But they don't really have to go that far. I'm just I'm being crazy out of passion for the thing. And even if that craziness convinces them that they should, maybe I should own like 5% at least in Bitcoin, like, because like that guy Ali, he seems to know something that we don't, maybe, or so
yeah, or at least if they got them to crack a book open and read something, and dive a little deeper, and that's all it takes for most people. It takes that first book, the Bitcoin Standard, Why Buy Bitcoin. Those books are great, introductory books, and the next thing you know, that person is diving down the Nick Szabo rabbit hole and reading Bitcoin and the number zero.
Exactly.
They're on their way.
So you got to start somewhere, and preaching about Bitcoin is the most noble thing you can do. So I feel good about it. I don't give a shit. People call me crazy or whatever. Like, whatever.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit crazy to ride through this volatility. It's fun, and you have to have at least a bit of a screw loose to do it.
The volatility, I think, is a good warning, which Ali, you gave earlier. You got to make sure this fits. Like, if you can't weather 50, 80% volatility, you're not ready to stack this asset right now with where it is on its monetization trajectory. So yeah, you could see somebody, I'm going to stack 100% of the balance sheet, keep limited cash reserves because this thing's going to the moon. Well, this protocol doesn't work that way. It requires patience, and you have to have a business plan that allows you to be patient.
Yeah,
that's right.
One thing I wanted to ask is, so that we discussed medium of exchange earlier and how we're not there yet, right, in terms of network adoption. But at Bitcoin 2022, Mallers was up on stage talking basically about disintermediating the current credit card model and payment processing model. And Josh talked about his business. Before I became a fireman, I was a manager of a small business, actually a golf course. And I remember our figures. I remember our credit card figures, and they're jaw-dropping. I'm guessing you both take credit cards. Ali, probably with transaction size, you probably do more than Kevin, but Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is this something you guys think about as Bitcoin continues its trajectory, using things like the Lightning Network to disintermediate the current credit card model and saving, say, 2% on the revenue side? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's actually 3 to 5% in credit card fees. It's insane, the amount of money they take from merchants. I'm so pumped for the opportunities that the Lightning Network brings. I mean, moving dollars on Lightning is a crazy, insane, and beautiful idea that will change everything. And with a protocol that's open source and it's free to plug into, like come on, who's not gonna plug into this?
As a merchant, you got to be crazy not to.
Yeah.
Especially when you're getting squeezed by inflation.
And especially if you are taking a lot of credit card payments. Like a company like, let's say Costco, for example. Okay. Costco takes billions of dollars a year. Okay. And do you know how much money they would be adding to their corporation if they partnered up with a Strike credit card, and mandated that all Costco members have to use a Strike payment app? Billions,
a shit ton
a year.
Yeah,
billions. So the incentive is right there for the taking. And do you really want to bet that companies are not going to try to save money if they have an opportunity?
Right.
Hell no. Right? So it's so exciting. And when I tell people this and like they still don't get it, I'm like, dude, this is already being integrated with Twitter. It's already it's being integrated with Shopify, Cash App, you name it. And why do you think this is just not going to keep on growing? So it's exciting. It can have huge implications on our business. We can't wait to be able to use it. We just can't right now. We can't move dollars on the Lightning Network. But once it happens and it becomes easy and integrated with all the POS systems and merchants are easily able to plug it into their business, it's going to change the game for everyone.
And it really is just a function of adoption at this point. I think this is what a lot of people get confused with. I actually have a close family member who works in credit card processing, and I was explaining the difference between Bitcoin, the asset, and Bitcoin, the network, right? Which is a little bit of a blunt tool, but I think it serves its purpose. Essentially, you could go euros to Lightning Network to dollars without ever knowing that you're using the Bitcoin protocol, much like we're using some internet protocol to exchange voice and video right now. We have no idea what's going on the back end. That's going to be the world we realize in the future with Bitcoin. But nothing has to change on the consumer facing or the merchant facing side. Once there's two peers that demand a less expensive, more secure, faster network, a better network, which Bitcoin is. There's a peer-to-peer network, as Satoshi released the white paper. Once more peers want to interact this way and cut these unnecessary middlemen, they can use the same technologies that they're using right now and just integrate this new protocol, right? I'm sure there's a future where your point of sale provider can incorporate Lightning and Cash App's incorporating it. So functionally, nothing changes. You're literally just cutting out a middleman that's siphoning off significant cash coming in. It's just hard to imagine how this reality isn't going to be realized. It seems inevitable once people's understanding catches up. And boy, has it happened quickly with some of what we heard Mallers talk about in Miami.
Mallers specifically is on the cutting edge of this, and the speed at which he's moving, and Cash App as well. Like, they are
incredible.
They're making this happen way faster than I think most of us anticipated. It seems obvious in retrospect after hearing it all, kind of rolled out on stage. But yeah, it's happening really fast.
You guys, do you guys understand for a restaurant, for example, do you know how much a difference of 3% margin can make to a restaurant? Or
don't restaurants generally have like a 10% margin overall? 10
to 15% margins. That's our margin. So imagine adding.
So you're talking about a 30% addition to your margin, to your profit line or profit margin.
Exactly.
And
it's
huge.
It's massive. And imagine also having the ability to give that back to your customers as rewards, for example, for buying. I'd rather give my customers that 3% than give it to the banks and Visa, MasterCard. Okay, that's way more advantageous for me. And on Lightning, you can do that now because, you can program it to do that. And there's going to be companies that, we're already seeing it in the space that they're going to offer Bitcoin rewards to their customers. And so that's also going to get built on Lightning. It's just incredible to think of the opportunities that are coming in the next few years.
Kevin, how do you receive most of your payments?
I know it's just so old school. It's 2022, right? And, but for us, we receive pretty much everything by check. So, you know, we're always calling and saying, hey, we didn't receive it. Oh, I put it in the mail. So I can't wait, you know, until this gets rolling. So we can say, hey, I'm looking at it. I would get it right now if you sent it. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting it. And can't wait until it happens.
Yeah, getting boomer checks kind of sucks because you have to deal with all that, but at least you're not getting charged that 5%, you know, at least you're keeping all your money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Except that the 2 weeks it takes that check to clear, you know, you probably lost that 2% in inflation.
True.
I envision a future, there may still be some restaurants by you. Like I can think of one of my favorite Greek restaurants in a town my wife and I used to live in, still cash only to this day. You could see a future when, you know, adoption goes parabolic where it's like, it's Bitcoin only here, motherfuckers.
That would be awesome.
We're not paying 2 or 3%. You come in here with a wallet loaded, we'll serve you. Long way off, but it could happen.
We're rounding this thing out here. We got at least one more question for you. What do you guys think the biggest risk that still exists in Bitcoin is, or for a business running on Bitcoin?
The biggest risk for a company running on a Bitcoin standard is mismanagement of their keys, mismanagement of their accounting, where like they would be forced to dig into their Bitcoin stack to sell it for some expense or something, and that's gonna trigger a tax event, and it just
This may not be a question you're comfortable answering, and feel free to say no. Do you guys use something like Unchained or Casa for managing or holding the Bitcoin that you guys have on your balance sheet?
Yeah, we do. We have multiple setups. So we have a single sig setup. We have a multi-sig setup. Multi-sig means there's multiple keys stored in separate geographical locations. So we're not at risk of somebody breaking in our store. They can come on in, say hi to the camera, and they won't get anything. And so yeah, it just puts us more at ease. But you know, this is still an evolving space, and people that don't do their homework can mess that up. You know, so studying into security setups is very important for people starting out in this. You can literally have like military grade, nuclear defense level of security. You know, and it's offered to you at a very, very cheap cost. You just have to learn how to do it. So
yeah, our friends at Cold Card can help you with that.
Exactly. Yeah. MVK is a close friend of mine, and he does. You know, he has the most secure wallet on the planet, in my opinion. And yeah, it's, you know, you gotta look into that. But risks to Bitcoin itself, I see more FUD being thrown on Bitcoin. Like the WEF is gonna come gunning for Bitcoin, but they can come and try, and you know, they can try to fork off the network, and I'm sure, you know, they're gonna get, you know, tens of people that will follow them.
Lots of people are going to sell their shitcoin, whatever they develop out of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's a risk of people, not on Bitcoin, but there's a risk of people buying into that narrative and getting hurt by that. Yeah, education is just a counter to that. Other than that, like, I'm super bullish on Bitcoin. Like, if you guys don't understand, like, how the network effects of Bitcoin work, you should start looking into that. You know, it's not just Metcalfe's law, where, you know, the value of the network is, you know, the square of the number of the nodes. It's more like the number of the nodes plus the value that they bring into the network. So like, you know, it's I don't know how to explain that, but like me alone, I brought in a few people on the network. Okay. But those few people brought millions of dollars onto the network.
Yeah. Think about what Michael Saylor's brought and his friends. Like
billions, right?
Yeah.
So the network effect doesn't grow the same way a social media network grows or a telephone network grows. It grows, it's an exponential formula on top of that, right? And it's quite powerful to study. And yeah, you guys should really look into that. It's an amazing time to be a part of Bitcoin.
Yeah,
it's Metcalfe's law meeting supply inelasticity, which mankind has never been through before. Like, we talk a lot. It's exponential network effects, which we've seen manifest in other arenas, but with a supply schedule that will not budge 1 inch. And those two dynamics coupled together are what will melt faces in the future. And it will be very surprising and shocking and confusing. Let's just distill this down to price, why price is behaving the way it is. And this is true both directions. But to the upside, it's going to be very confusing because this is a phenomena mankind has never confronted before.
Yeah, I think what Ellie's saying as well, because I completely agree with you, Dan. It's Metcalfe's law meeting, an inelastic supply, but it's almost like a supercharged version of Metcalfe's law, because as these people with massive net worth start entering this space, that inelasticity is what it is, and this is just multiplying that Metcalfe's law almost by a factor of, I don't even know if it's measurable.
Yeah. So Facebook, for example, is like, if you want to calculate, if there's 10 users on Facebook, the value of Facebook is like 10 to the power of 10, right? So the number of people to the power of the 10 possibilities and network effects that they can have with each other. So maybe this can be something like, if there's 10 users on Bitcoin, but each one bringing $1 million, it becomes 10 to the power of 10 plus million, right? Because there's like $10 million of value that can have network effects with each other. So, yeah, it's wild.
It's huge.
It's the Incredible Hulk on cocaine.
Yeah.
We've never seen anything like it.
Speed, cocaine, and biker crank.
Kevin, how about you? What thoughts do you have on that, or risks, or anything you want to riff on here?
Sure. Because I think that's our goal here, right? Is to try to educate small business on why it will be good for them, right? Because those big publicly traded companies, the sovereign wealth funds, right, they can afford to buy it when it's $1 million a coin, right? But if they get in beforehand, right, it's going to go up to $1 million, and the small business isn't going to be able to purchase as much Bitcoin. So the goal here is to educate small business owners to be able to get in before all these big guys get in and the price rises, skyrockets here. And so,
amen.
Wanted to talk about that. Also, in regards to security, right? A lot of that's a hang up for a lot of people. And I just want to say, listen, I'm just a dumb paving guy, right? And I can figure it out. So if you think you can, or you think you have to be super tech savvy or anything like that, you don't, to put it in cold storage. So it's anybody can do it. I guess, my other things are just, hey, you've taken the initiative as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, to grab the bull by the horns, right? And take your destiny into your own hands. And now what we're saying is, hey, grab the bull by the horns and take your money into your own hands. Don't let the Fed inflate it away. And, I just think that's real important. Or I guess on this show, I should be saying that the hands around the hog.
Yeah. Get your hands on that that hog's head.
By the way, did you guys see Josh's hat? We're selling merch now on our website. He's got a hat that says "Hoggle."
Yeah,
hoggle the Bitcoin.
It's a big hit at the firehouse so far.
Kevin, I should have had my eyes closed and my hands raised, saying hallelujah to everything you just said. The part I resonate with the most, that identifies with our ethos and what we're up to here. This is about the little guy right now. Bitcoin will eventually be a wealth preserving building tool, but it is currently a wealth multiplying tool. And this opportunity, this window will close eventually.
Amen.
Bitcoin will always be an empowerment tool for businesses like yours and for middle-class members like us. But this opportunity will cease to exist at some point in the future. Get the slippery hog around your arms, folks. This average doesn't last long.
Get them around your arms. And if you want to ever tell your boss to fuck off and, just make sure to buy as much Bitcoin as you can today and sit on it for 5 years, and you'll probably be able to tell your boss to go fuck himself, and you'll enjoy it. It'll be worth it.
And one last thing I'd like to point out, if I can, is, many small businesses, right? Like we're in the service business. And I listened to this one podcast from an entrepreneur named Steve Rifkind. He was like a music manager back in the late 80s, early 90s with a lot of like hip hop groups. And he had a marketing and promotions company where, when a group was coming out with a new album or something, he would market the video and go to radio and do all this promo. And they were service contracts. And someone offered him a record label deal, and he turned it down. He said, "Hey, I'm making so much money with this, working this marketing and promotions company that I have. Why would I take that?" And his dad was a businessman, found out he turned that down and called him up and had him come over to his house. And he said, you're crazy. Let me explain the difference between a service business and an asset business. Right. And so in this instance, the asset is the rights to the music that he would own as the record label owner. Right. And you're getting royalties from that for life. Right. And so, we're in the service business, right? And we have an opportunity right here to get into the asset business. When you're in the service business, you're as good as your last contract. When you're in the asset business, you're making money while you sleep. And so I think that's a very important point that I'd like to make to everybody. And, that really resonated with me. Hopefully it'll resonate with everybody else.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
That's a point that I think a lot of people would miss.
Gentlemen, give us a handoff to where people can find you and your businesses. And if you got any final words, feel free to throw them out. This has been beyond fun for the last hour and 20 minutes. Ali, why don't we start with you, and then we'll move to Kevin on a closer here.
Yeah, this has been amazing. You guys are super fun to hang out with. Basically nothing really to hand off here. You can follow us on Twitter, at The Real Tahinis. If you'd like to see food content and Bitcoin content, that's what we do over there. And if you want to know more about Tahinis, just visit tahinis.com. And
I'm All Out Kev on Twitter. You can also message me on LinkedIn, All Out Parking Lots. Guys, thanks so much. This has been a blast. Thank you. Thank you for having us. And this was awesome.
Absolutely. We enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for listening into the show. If you enjoyed this discussion, be sure to like or subscribe on whatever app you're using for podcasts or on YouTube. And if you have an extra minute, go ahead and leave us a review. We are also active on Twitter at blue_collar BTC, and our email address is bluecollar_bitcoin_podcast@gmail.com. We invite questions, comments, or inquiries of any kind. We look forward to you joining us again on the BCB Podcast.